A very good morning. Welcome to StudyIQ English, your trusted UPSC platform where thousands of aspirations, thousands of UPSC dreams are becoming a reality each day. Welcome to today's Hindu newspaper analysis where we will be analyzing UPSC relevant, exam important articles from the Hindu newspaper, the New Delhi edition for today, that's 13th August 2025. And just like yesterday, for today's newspaper, we do have many important topics ranging from two that I have picked up from the editorial page, that's page number 8. These would need a slightly more detailed analysis for the UPSC mains exam perspective. And then we have another 5 articles which are shorter and crisper, but we will analyze them from a more prelim centric approach. So, then a very good morning once again, and let's start with today's first topic that's on your screen. This is page number 8, the editorial page. The article once again is referring to the conflict in West Asia in reference with Israeli consistent and continuous attack on the Palestine region, the Gaza Strip. We also here talk about how entire world is now seeing this problem in a very new light. If you remember, just until a few months before, not only the US but also most countries in Europe were supporting the stand of Israel. Nobody came out in open and criticized the genocide that's happening in Palestine, despite reports of humanitarian crisis, starvation, young children dying, thousands of casualties each day. And hence despite that nobody, came out in open and condemned Israel. But today things are changing. And therefore this article asks a question that Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, he is pushing for a new formula, and this is known as the no state solution, as the whole world expected Israel to follow the two-state solution, where both Israel and Palestine could have negotiated their territorial dispute and both of them could have peacefully coexisted. But that did not happen because Israel has bigger dreams, dreams of expansion. So today, this strategy of Netanyahu is nothing but a no state solution, from where there is only war, only genocide, only ethnic cleansing, and absolutely no scope of peace in the future. That's this article. A very good morning, Rishi. A very, very good morning, Manta. Welcome to today's session. So now let me quickly first do the topic mapping. Which topic in the UPSC syllabus does this article correspond to? We know that this is UPSC General Studies or GS paper 2 because yes, we are talking about international relations. We are talking about geopolitical relationships, diplomacy between countries, specifically with reference to the West Asian region. Yes, we are talking about the Israel-Palestine ongoing conflict. We are talking about how the ICC, International Criminal Court, and ICJ, International Court of Justice. Do remember that these both are different organizations. Many students confuse between the ICC and the ICJ, whereas both are separate entities. And in this article, under UPSC GS Paper 2 International Relations, both these are coming into the picture. So we will talk about how they are involved in this particular issue. If this is the topic, then what is the key argument made by the article? First, let's understand the major problem. What is the key issue here? The key issue in this article is suddenly, are the Western countries, including the countries of European Union, experiencing a change of heart? How come there is a sudden new sentiment of emotion coming in countries like France, countries like Canada, yesterday Australia, where all these countries are all out of the blue, just overnight, having a lot of sympathy for Palestine? They are saying that what Israel is doing today is definitely a genocide. And if Israel doesn't stop, then we will have no choice but to acknowledge, but to accept the agenda of the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization. Article is asking the question, is this a sudden change of heart? What is the reason behind it? So let's understand that a major change has happened recently in the attitude of most of the countries across the world. When I say most of the countries, we know that US is backing Israel very strongly. Russia and China have chosen a diplomatic silence over the Israeli issue. Whereas other countries are concerned, most of them also chose to remain silent despite the ongoing war, which has now almost reached its culmination point. At this point, we see that countries like United Kingdom, countries like France, countries like Canada, countries like Australia, suddenly they are coming out and saying that if Israel immediately does not stop the war in Palestine, we will go ahead and recognize Palestine as a nation state, as a separate country with a legal identity. This is happening because today the whole world is angry. The whole world is feeling fed up over continuous violence, over heart wrenching pictures of young children starving to death, acute malnourishment, millions of people being displaced internationally, and genocide, war crimes against women, lack of basic things like sanitation and drinking water. Just yesterday, about 5 journalists who were working for the Al Jazeera news channel were also the ones who lost their lives. So the casualties are increasing each day. Therefore, today the world is saying that despite so many countries having supported Israel after 1948, when Israel had formally come into being, since then, so many Western countries, not just US, as I said, also the European Union nations, including the then pre-Brexit United Kingdom, all these were ready to recognize Israel. After Israel came into being, they understood. They felt the need for the Jewish people to establish for themselves a separate space. But what is the benefit? Today, despite their ideological support to Israel, all these countries are at loss of words. It is a political embarrassment for them. They cannot justify the genocide. They cannot close their eyes against what is happening each day. So let's quickly, as per this article, go a little bit back in the history and see the series of political developments in West Asia. And then we ask ourselves the question, what is the future of this conflict, therefore? So let me take you quickly a little bit down the history timeline. Here, let's talk about first, long back, the 1917 Balfour Declaration. When we say Balfour Declaration, quite an important theme to be covered in your UPSC GS paper 2. Balfour Declaration of 1970s was when British government declared its support to Israel. It said that yes, there is a need for a national home for the Jewish people. They need it because remember, they were the victims of the brutal Holocaust. They were the ones who experienced ethnic cleansing by the Nazi regime. So what is wrong if today they want to have a separate space for themselves, to perpetuate their nationality, their culture, their population? And hence, Britain was in the favor of Israel back then. Then 1948, as I just said, formally Israel was created. When Israel was created at that time, thousands and millions of Palestinian people who were living in that region had to relocate. So it led to an emigration of so many non-Jews, of so many Palestinian people from the newer or the newly created Israel territory. This was the Palestinian exit and it is broadly referred to as the Nakba. Nakba here means the mass out migration or emigration, going out of the Palestinian people as Israel was creating a country for itself. After the Nakba, which is still ongoing. It is an ongoing process, but it happened majorly during 1948 as Israel was created. After that, let's talk about 1967. Now, during 1967, Israel continued its expansionist policy. It occupied Gaza. It occupied a major area of the West Bank. It also occupied the eastern part of Jerusalem. Why? Because this marks a very important event named as the Six-Day War. Just 2 days before, I also discussed with you the Golan Heights, how Israel had captured Golan Heights from Syria. Till date, many people refuse to say that it is Israeli territory, but still it is under its occupation. So all this is 1967, when after the Six-Day War, Israel captured these many territories. I'll quickly write these down for you. This was West Bank. Please let me know if you are comfortable in reading the font size. A very good morning, Vaibhav. Yes, absolutely. You are right, Rishi. Humanity should be the first priority. No wonder the countries are not supporting Israel now. Do let me know if my font size is comfortable to each of the student. Else, I will zoom it further for you. Okay, so after the Six-Day War, Israel captured the West Bank. Israel went on to capture major part of the Gaza Strip. As I said, the eastern Jerusalem. We did speak about the Golan Heights. When this happened in 1967, Israel was ignoring the claims coming from other parts of the world. It was using an emotional appeal that we were the victims of the Holocaust and therefore we have every right to reassert our identity. With this, back in the 1980s, there were many global South countries like India, which also then started recognizing the PLO demand, the demand of the Palestinian Liberation Organization for being acknowledged for their demand of a valid Palestine state. The Palestinian people did not want to, thank you so much for clarification, Mamta. The Palestinian people did not want to live like refugees in their own land. So therefore, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which US and Israel call as an extremist terror organization, was fighting for a separate nation state for Palestine. In the 1980s, many southern countries of the southern hemisphere, the global south as we call it, including India, it recognized the existence of Palestine state as the Palestine declared its independence. But shortly after that, in the 1993 and in the 1995 period, in these 2 years period, the Oslo Accords happened. I'll just quickly change the slide. So we'll say that in 1993 and in 1995, during this period, an international development took place known as the Oslo Accords. Under the Oslo Accords, there were so many agreements that happened. A series of agreements actually started happening between whom? Between Israel on the one hand and Palestine Liberation Organization on the other hand, to create a mutual solution so that Palestine could also find its own self-government space within certain parts situated in the areas of West Bank and Gaza Strip. But despite that, there was no positive outcome that happened. Back in the 2000s, more particularly after 2015, there were again a set of accords named as the Abraham Accords. Here, led by the US government, many countries of the West Asia, including Saudi Arabia, they started recognizing, Yemen also, they started recognizing the identity of Israel. So clearly the world got divided into two kind of poles. On the one hand were the countries who were ready to recognize Palestine and the demand of PLO. On the other hand, there are countries, like for example Saudi Arabia, who despite being an Islamic republic, had recognized Israel already. So it was in the backdrop of this conflict that the war in West Asia continued. There was no sign of stopping. Israel was not ready to follow this two-state solution, which said that both the countries should find mutually recognized territorial borders for each other's peaceful coexistence. But that never happened. Today, the article is saying if Israel has a history of expansion, extremism, and disregarding the two-state solution, it is nothing but the fact that Israel wants to move towards a zero-state solution where there will never be any solution. Today, as children and women, are waiting in lines for getting just few liters of water, just few grams of flour, and little bit aid and supplies, the world is experiencing a change of heart. Yes, today countries like France, Canada, Australia, and United Kingdom are ready to recognize the demand of Palestine Liberation Organization. They say that enough of violence. We cannot tolerate this genocide anymore. Humanity cannot be neglected for so long. Clearly, the International Criminal Court. Now, please understand that International Criminal Court has the power of issuing arrest warrants, of issuing legal notices to individuals who are accused of war crimes, whereas the International Court of Justice, that is headquartered in the Netherlands, is an organ of the United Nations. It's a judiciary organ of the United Nations. It cannot issue arrest warrants to individuals, but it can only accuse countries of breaking its protocols. Like very recently, in one of the articles I discussed with you, International Court of Justice is saying that carbon trading will not help. We need all the countries to come together and find an equal and mutually created solution for global warming. That was International Court of Justice. But this is International Criminal Court. Interestingly, both are headquartered in the same region. But this has the right to issue warrant even to individuals who are accused of war crimes. So the ICC has issued an arrest warrant to Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu. Countries cannot neglect this anymore. Similarly, International Court of Justice as well has imposed grave genocide, humanitarian abuse charges on Israel for a long time now. At the same time, the data says that 2.6% of total population of the Gaza Strip has already been killed just in the last 22 months. The data includes other disturbing facts like about 1,80,000 people missing, 18,000 children killed so far. That is, of course, the data. The reality could be much more grim and dark. As per the European Union, only 13 to 21% people today in the European Union countries are ready to support Israel. The others want peace. Similarly, if you talk about US, a key supporter of Israel, ironically, 84% of population as per an estimation done recently wants an end to the war. It wants a ceasefire with immediate effect. And what is the impact of all these problems on the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu itself? He is still continuing with an extreme expansionist ideology, which the article has referred to as the Zionistic ideology. The Zionistic extremist ideology of expansion. They continue to say the same narrative. We suffered during the Holocaust. Today, there is no stopping us from expanding and claiming our right. So therefore, the two-state solution doesn't seem to be in picture. A ceasefire is very unlikely. The zero-state solution or no-state solution is what the future is looking like, and lame justifications regarding historical events are being created to further just carry on the violence. So this is what the article has spoken about. Yes, definitely very important from the perspective of international relations, and I would like you to look at this question, a prelims question from UPSC 2018. The question is asking, the term two-state solution is sometimes mentioned in the news in the context of which of the following? A is China, B is Israel, C is Iraq, and D is Yemen. It's a very easy question, and this also proves that if we seriously, in a very dedicated way, follow the news analysis articles every day, it's quite easy to handle the UPSC prelims question based on IR. Now, every year you see about 8 to 12 questions that do come from international relations GS paper 2 in the prelims. More specifically, these questions will ask you places in the news, whether it's Golan Heights, whether, for example, it is any famous lake, the one that I just spoke about in my current affairs video, or Other areas in news, like for example, the Kamchatka Peninsula, which experienced earthquake and tsunami warning. So when you follow the newspaper articles each day, for you it becomes very easy to handle such direct questions. Yes, the answer is absolutely correct, Mamta and Rachit. Wonderful. So with this, let us proceed with the next article. Again, this is page number 8, the editorial page. This is an article that I would say is relevant for your GS paper too. Yes, absolutely, because the article does touch upon social justice. Article talks about women and women's health problems. So women health is an important agenda in GS paper 2 social justice, but the article also is connected with GS paper 3, because when we talk about science technology part of GS paper 3 UPSC, we know that organ transplantation is a quite important topic here. Organ transplantation. Apart from organ transplantation, you also have transplantation and medical protocols that are mentioned here in this topic. So both GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. What does the article say? Article says people in India who are desperately in the need of organ transplantation with the burden of kidney disease, liver disease, heart failure increasing just 2 times in the past 20 years. The burden of non-communicable diseases, diseases which are not contagious but still are life-threatening, particularly the cardiovascular, heart-related issues, the kidney and lung and liver issues. These are on the rise. You can blame it to the lifestyle, to the consumption pattern. You can blame it to the air, water, soil toxicity. You can blame it to the COVID-19 pandemic and its resulting fallouts on people. At the end of the day, the burden of non communicable diseases is purely increasing in India. The waiting list of those who are waiting to receive organ transplant as they are suffering from critical organ failure is only on the rise. Plus, diseases like hypertension and diabetes are doing nothing but further resulting in multiple organ failures among people. So, transplantation is the need of the hour. But as per this article, those who really need it are the ones who do not get it. And generally, those who have more money, more political connections, and the ability to travel abroad are the ones who receive majority of successful organ donations. So let's look a little bit more in the article and try to understand why the article is complaining that women in India are those who do not receive enough medical care, especially when you talk about organ transplantation. So the article takes us to the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, NOTO. Do remember the name, quite important for GS paper 3 mains also. So NOTO is giving a very important advice or a very important notification which is saying that women in India are the ones who are waiting in the longer list. They are on the waiting list like for years, sometimes for decades. In the process, so many die because they do not receive any organ transplantation on priority. Second thing is that people who are the relatives of those who have just died, they are also the ones who do not prioritize giving organs to women in their family. In fact, women are the ones who are donating more organs, but they are not the ones who are receiving organ transplantation on priority. The problem is the problem of social natural justice, where even something as basic as universal access to healthcare, universal right to live, Article 21, the right to life itself, this is also influenced by patriarchy and inequality. This is the key tone of this article here. According to the article, unfortunately, women in India are receiving much less organ donations. They are not receiving so many organs, even in the case of critical illness. But they are the ones who give more organs generally. Why do you think that could be a reality? Why this patriarchal bias, even in something as basic and universal as organ giving and taking? Clearly, As per the article, it is cultural religious traditions that are responsible for these problems. In a majority of Indian families, it is the men who are the economic heads of the families. They are the ones who are winning the bread for the family. When they lead the families, family is automatically patriarchal. Family is patrilineal. Men historically have a greater say, a greater authority in Indian family structures, particularly in traditional families, which means women are seen as symbols of sacrifice. So they are ready to give an organ immediately to an immediate family member or a close relative. But when it comes to women in the need of an organ, often it is not advisable that a man who is earning the money for the family, who's the property owner, in whose name the family line or the descent is being reckoned, why should he lose his life for the woman in the family? Because clearly the economic role of men places them at a much more important position across various segments of society. So therefore the data is not shocking. From 2013 to 2023, among all those people who donated their organs to others, 63% were women. Just imagine, more than half. So 63% of those who are donating organs in India are ladies. Women who receive the organs, on the other hand, if we talk about the recipients, look how less it is. As per the article, heart recipients, only 24%. Lung 47, kidney 37%, liver 30%, pancreas 26%. A woman who gives birth to a child is also the one who does not get a chance to live once again, because she is always on the last spot in the waiting list when it comes to receiving organs, which clearly means even the family members are not ready to donate organs to women as much they are willingly donating it to the men of the same family. So therefore, this sudden idea that has come to the government in the form of the NOTTO advisory that has been issued to the medical hospitals, to the healthcare centers and doctors, that please keep women on your priority list. We need to have some equality in medical ethics and protocols. Definitely, it is also a question of GS paper 4. It is a question of ethics, basic humanitarian right, utilitarianism, absolute welfareism. All these are Kantian principles of ethics. They mean you have to prioritize the greatest benefit of the greatest number of people. There is no alternative to humanity. So, similarly, what is wrong if today the NOTO has given an advisory to the healthcare industry that do prioritize women in your priority list when it comes to giving organs? Similarly, do prioritize women coming from further more vulnerable backgrounds like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or extremely poor women from the below poverty line segments, from the EWS, economically weaker segments. The transplantation. Now, another interesting debate here is that why suddenly did the NOTO have to issue this advisory? Is it like suddenly we are feeling extremely emotional or extremely sympathetic towards our women? This data is from 2023. We know that women give more organs and receive very few. So, why suddenly are we being so thoughtful about them? So, it is not a sudden act of thoughtfulness, it is a calculated advisory. Because in India, as of now, when you talk about protocols in medical science, including Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissues Act 1994, it is an act that gives priority on the basis of medical emergency of the victim, not on the basis of their gender, caste, their past history of donation, their monetary standards, nothing. The rules were amended in 2011 and clearly it is an unbiased protocol. It says let's prioritize people on the basis of how much need do they have. Medical emergency will be the only criteria. Gender or caste will not be the criteria. Similarly, NOTO, as I discussed about NOTO, it is the topmost agency under the Ministry of Health for organ transplantation protocols, for organ donation, receiving, allocation, registry and management. NOTO is saying that agreed that our Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissues Act 1994 says that there should not be a bias. We should do it on the basis of medical emergency. But given the fact that in India, already the health condition of women is not good, they are victims of malnourishment, poor access to reproductive health care. Is it also not a question of the future generations and their well being? Is it not a question of encouraging good health among women in the reproductive age from 15 to 49? After all, that determines your fertility rate of the entire country. That determines the future generation and its physical and mental health well-being. So neglecting women in medical health care would be as bad as probably ignoring the health priorities of the upcoming generations. It will be like ignoring the fertility trends of India, which are already falling below the global average, especially in the southern Indian states and the northeast Indian states. So there is nothing, there is no harm, as per the motto, in giving priority to one segment of society which has long been ignored. If till 2023 women were 63% only donating, then at least in another 10 years to come, create a situation where they become at least 50% of recipients also. If they are 60% of donors, let's do a 50-50 scenario. That is in interest of the entire population, not just about prioritizing women. So, yes, it is important that we should prioritize emergency of the medical case, compatibility between the donor and the recipient. Of course, matching compatibility, blood test, blood matching, all that is necessary. But still, today having a soft corner for women who have been neglected for generations is not bad. It is actually quite in line with social justice, and that is what the article says, that it's a good thing that we are making our medical laws more gender sensitive. And that's this article. Now, a very good morning, Neha. Yes, welcome to the show. Welcome to our Hindu news analysis show, rather. Okay, with this, let's go to another article. Now, this is a brief article, and you may have heard this already in the news. Today, it was taken in the editorial page, also in the Hindu page number 8. And then there was another column on the same issue in one of the other pages of the Hindu also. You all know about it. The ongoing debate, the ongoing controversy between animal welfare activists on the one hand and the order of the Supreme Court to relocate immediately within a period of 8 weeks all the stray dogs in Delhi and the National Capital Region, the NCR, and shift them into proper animal shelters. The Supreme Court says the number of cases of human deaths, disability, is on the rise owing to attacks by stray dogs. The deaths associated with rabies is also on the rise, besides many other kinds of infections. Many victims who lost their life in the past few months were children. So, horrifying scenes have been out in the media and social media regarding how the stray dogs have been attacking the passers by or entering into the areas like slums which have no gated community and just mauling or attacking young children whomsoever they find. The Supreme Court says it is an emergency and therefore we give the government exactly 8 weeks to undergo this operation, remove the canines, shift them to animal shelters, conduct sterilization surgeries, and make sure they are not back on the streets. We need stray dog free Delhi, stray dog free NCR. Yes, correct. The population they are saying is close to about 37 lakh dogs roaming around. Thank you, Mamta. So imagine the severity of the case. In this light, we are asking if the Supreme Court has asked us to remove the dogs from the streets immediately, why is a debate erupting? Why do people have a problem with this verdict and what is the reason behind the debate? Let's quickly first do the topic mapping. Which UPSC GS paper does this topic match with? Definitely it matches with your GS paper 1. It is a social issue of safety on public roads, safety especially of the vulnerable segments who are living by the roadside in open slum areas. It is related to that. Then apart from that, it is also definitely related to GS paper 3 because yes, we are talking about public health here, public health and safety, diseases like rabies. Okay. Now let's quickly see what is the argument made by the article. Yes, absolutely. I'm in tune with all the comments. Okay. So the article is saying, why is the debate happening? Even if Supreme Court has given this order. The debate is happening because there seems to be a conflict between what? The conflict between existing policy laws, existing protocols, and the new directives issued by the Supreme Court. Yes, that's true. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Mamta, for that update. Yes, it is, I agree, it is a very, very severe issue. And those whose family members have been attacked, those who have experienced this attack today absolutely support the Supreme Court verdict. But people are having a problem. Let's see why the problem. Problem is because there seems to be a conflict between existing laws. As per the existing laws, like the Animal Birth Control ABC Rules 2023, the standard protocol should be capture the stray dogs, go for neuterization, do some sterilization surgery so that they cannot reproduce, they cannot have children, and then give them vaccinations like the anti-rabies vaccination and many other required vaccinations. And after you have done this, release them back to the road. That is the existing protocol. But today, as the number of these stray dogs has risen above 30 lakhs, it is becoming a menace. Will the existing laws be sufficient? Now, the existing laws, the ABC Rules 2023, they prohibit relocation or permanent shifting of these stray dogs to another new locality. They only say capture, do the neuterization, sterilize them, vaccinate them, and leave them back on the road. But do not do relocation. That's not allowed. Sometimes these protocols are also saying if the concerned dog is experiencing a terminal illness, if that dog is rabid, it has already developed some disease like rabies, it is not normal. In that case, we can allow for humanitarian mercy killing, euthanasia, okay, or some kind of necessary capturing or confinement, but only if it is necessary and if a certified veterinarian doctor, animal specialist, guarantees that yes, the dog is in a very dangerous situation. It cannot be left in human communities. Only then. Plus, there is another existing law called Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. This is 1960. It says that whenever there is a case of too much stray dog menace, we have to still try to prevent unnecessary suffering, unnecessary pain towards these poor animals. We should not cause them any pain without a reason. But the problem is, this Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act was enacted back in 1960. India caught up a severe heavy pace of urbanization only in the 1980s and 1990s. It was only during this period that industrialization in India caught pace, and therefore urban cities expanded and the country underwent massive urbanization, which means the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act is an age-old act. It is an obsolete act. It came in 1960 where there was barely any urbanization. So how will this old law address the modern problem of human-animal conflict, where already the cities have become congested with excessive human habitation, excessive traffic, and therefore more than 30 lakh stray dogs in such a congested situation are bound to create animal human conflict and dangerous cases of human death, human abuse, biting, injury, as well as animal abuse. It is bound to happen. So therefore, the problem with the current rule is that government says we need to cover 70% of sterilization surgeries for these stray dogs. But in reality, not even half is done. It's very difficult to get it done. Second thing is that although the dogs have been given vaccinations, some of them, but sometimes they still develop newer kind of diseases which are very dangerous for humans through scratching or biting. Then the problem is that most of these stray dogs are living in areas which are occupied by slums. The young, innocent slum children, women who go out for work, men who step out for labor, they are the ones who become easy victims of these dogs. Plus, The diseases that are rampant is another problem. Now, most of these dogs will also be found near carelessly dumped garbage areas. But then again, these are areas where a lot of poor communities are also living. So, which means that anyway, children from the poor community and the women and the old population are under grave risk of dog mauling, attacking, or biting, and hence death or disability. Now, public health, when you talk about public health risk, and rabies is a leading cause of death, injury, disease in India, a disease that can be prevented. And still, owing to the high stray dog population, poor awareness regarding human preventive vaccination is leading to rising cases of rabies. So, therefore, they not only cause physical problem, disease, they also cause psychological trauma. People are scared of coming out. Working women are scared, especially in the poor communities, of going to work because they cannot leave their children safely. So, all these are becoming now important considerations. So, is there a solution to the problem? The existing laws are not helping. The Supreme Court jurisdiction is, not making at least the animal welfare activists happy. A lot of organizations like the PETA, they have complained that relocating street dog only means that further torture for them, not sufficient dignified shelters are not there, food will always be a problem. The new shelters will be overcrowded. Plus, in India, we have had a tradition of having so many animals living among the human communities. Today, Maneka Gandhi has also said that if we remove all the stray dogs, rodents will come and take over the city. So stray dogs also act as a barrier to the rodent population from growing. So among all these concerns, can we have a solution? Yes, certain solutions have been suggested by the article. This article says one big solution could be that people who view them as community dogs must understand that today we need a proper categorization. We need a categorization by the animal right activists, agencies, and also by the municipal corporations. We need all these agencies to step in and do some categorization of stray dogs into those who really are in the need of humane euthanasia, those who can be killed for humane reasons, those who are aggressive, but there is no choice, but they have to be shifted to the shelters because they are quite aggressive. You cannot kill them, but they are still aggressive. And those who are actually quite normal and hence they can live outside and near the human communities without the need for relocation. That's one thing. And those who therefore can be adopted by the people. Now, adoption can be very good here as a strategy. Second thing is we can create a mass vaccination drive for these stray dogs against rabies and also mass sterilization for all the stray dogs, but on a continuous basis, on a steady basis. Let it not happen whenever the problem is increasing and let it then again disappear. Let's have a very consistent vaccination and sterilization drive for these animals. Another issue could be we need a more recent census on the population of stray dogs. The current data is the one that is coming from the livestock enumeration, which is as old as about, say, 2021 or something. That's quite old now. Specifically talking about the stray dog population for the Delhi NCR, the data has been picked up from an estimation that was done as back as 2016, close to 9 years before. So this is an outdated data. We really do not know the real number of stray dogs. So before implementing a policy like relocation, at least do a fresh counting. That's what the article is saying. Plus, the article is also saying that in case they need to be relocated as per the Supreme Court order, then at least make sure that the shelters in which they are being relocated to are dignified. They are well maintained and they are examined, monitored by registered veterinarians and animal welfare activists. Only then please take up this step. So this is the key demand for this article. Let's look at a question from UPSC 2014. It says, consider the following statements. 1. Animal Welfare Board of India, established under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. Second, National Tiger Conservation Authority is a statutory body. 3. National Ganga River Basin Authority is chaired by the Prime Minister. Please pick out the valid response and yes, you can post your answer in the comment box. Now, let me take you to the next article. This is page number 12. It is quite a good news for India's semiconductor industry. The government has given approval for 4 new semiconductors. When we talk about this, so clearly we know we are referring to GS paper 3 here in terms of topic mapping, because yes, semiconductor, utilization of rare earth materials, manufacturing of electronic vehicle batteries, all these, and AI computation, these belong to your broad science and technology topic. So semiconductor technology, its manufacturing, its export, all that comes under GS paper 3. So the cabinet and the union government has now given permission to 4 new semiconductor units that will come up in the states of Odisha, Punjab, and Andhra Pradesh. A massive money of about 4,500 rupees crore has been allocated for this purpose. Why is this move important? Because it resonates with India's larger ambition of India's semiconductor mission that needs to be expedited. It needs to be completed at least by 2030. So, in that light, India's semiconductor mission has been given a major boost by inaugurating an approval for all these 4 plants. So, India's semiconductor mission was launched by the government in 2021. The purpose was to boost self-sufficiency in semiconductor chip manufacturing. If you know, today also we are hugely dependent on exports from countries like Japan, South Korea, China for our semiconductor chips, which is not only not cost effective, but also it leads too much dependence on countries like China. Often the supply chains are disrupted. Often countries like China suddenly announce a reduction in their exports. In that case, India's manufacturing also suffers. So the purpose of the semiconductor mission of India is to make India self-sufficient and capable of producing domestically the semiconductor chips to create a much better semiconductor ecosystem in India. That's the purpose. So once our imports are reduced, self-reliance increases, then we will be self-sufficient in manufacturing, design, research, and you never know, even export of semiconductor chips and materials. So how will this help us, this new initiative? Definitely, in terms of economic benefit, it will create more jobs in the manufacturing sector. When India will start producing more semiconductor chips, more factories, many more dedicated units will come up. This will boost indigenous job market in a big way. Because today itself in the Hindu newspaper, one very interesting article came that spoke about your employment linked initiative and how this policy of the government is not a very successful policy. Then just a few days back, another article had come which said, despite the fact that our economic growth seems to be stable, the unemployment figures are quite high. In this light, we know that India needs more jobs. And what can be better than creating jobs in the manufacturing sector, which do not need the population to be highly technically skilled sometimes. And yet, with a basic higher education and training, people can get these jobs. So, yes, it will lead to employment generation. It will also attract other countries. Foreign direct investment will come to India. More private sector companies will also then start participating in India's semiconductor chips manufacturing. Now, this also therefore will improve India's position in the global supply chain regarding semiconductor manufacturing. Let's talk about a little bit of geopolitical aspect of this problem. Now, we understand that too much dependence on countries like China may not be sustainable in the long run. The first shock came in 2020, COVID pandemic. The second shock came as China started being overtly aggressive with countries like Hong Kong, Taiwan, sometimes even Philippines, fighting over islands like the Senkaku Island issue with Japan, the domination in the South China Sea, the retaliation China did to the US imposed tariff initially. So, all these, the line of control issue with India, which means China is not a reliable trade partner at all. That we understand. So, therefore, depending on China led supply chain is again not a good idea. We will then have to be always prepared for a supply shock. So, better strategy would be Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India in semiconductor technology. Now, recently we know China-Taiwan issue is also creating a little bit of problem in the supply chains coming from South Asia. So a better strategy would be that India's domestic capacity enhances, and that's the plan of India by creating this semiconductor mission and allowing these 4 plants. Then India is also trying to look for partnerships with more politically neutral and friendly countries of the European Union, yes, Japan, and also India has had a major deal of semiconductor material import, technology import from the US. Now, with regards to the US, there is not much that can be committed right now, owing to the tariff battle that's ongoing. But at least with the European Union nations and Japan and South Korea, India does look forward to developing a more strategic partnership for longer term benefit. So, in this article, there is another very interesting word that has been mentioned, and this is silicon carbide technology. So I would definitely want you to know this because GS paper 3 again will have this as an important issue. And this is a much smarter, a much more effective technique in semiconductor manufacturing because it is using a much lesser electricity, a much lesser temperature, less heat, less power, less electricity is needed for creating the silicon carbide chips. And these chips are therefore much more efficient than the standard silicon chips. Okay, now they are critical, they are very important for battery manufacturing in the electric vehicle segment. Again, India is giving a major push to that. In the renewable energy, solar battery manufacturing segment, and electricity gadgets and electricity goods. So this is the broad coverage of this article. Now quickly let us have a look at one question. That is absolutely correct, Rishi, well said. In India, in the higher education segment also, we need more training for the students in technologies like AI chip manufacturing, semiconductor chip manufacturing. That definitely will go a long way in ensuring more self-sufficiency in India. That's a valid point you have said. Now, UPSC 2012 question. Recently, there has been a concern over shortage of supply of rare earth metals. Why has that been the case? Is it one, because China, which is the largest producer of these elements, has imposed restrictions on its export? Yes, that was in the news. Two, other than China, Australia, Canada, Chile are, except for these 4 countries, these elements are not found anywhere else. That's a tricky option. 3. Rare earth metals are important for manufacturing of various kinds of electronic items, and there is a growing demand for these elements. I would say it's an easy question. One option slightly tricky. See if you can solve it, and definitely you can post your answers. Okay, Mamta, that is a correct answer for the previous question. Now let's go and have a look quickly at India's defense system in the form of this article from page number 12. Okay. Just try to read the option number 2 and answer once again. Okay. This article on page number 12 says the Indian Air Force is now giving a lot of priority to purchasing, manufacturing, and including long-range missiles in its military equipment. Why? Because after the success of Operation Sindoor, it has been proven to us that long-range missile systems are excellent when it gives, because they give the capacity to the military personnel to target enemy drones, enemy missiles, to intercept them from a very, very long distance. So, in terms of boosting India's defense infrastructure, the Indian Air Force has now decided to further induct many, many more long range air to ground and air to air missiles, which have an attack capacity, strike capacity of more than 200 kilometers. This comes in the light of the wake up call after Operation Sindoor. Yes, it is an effective technique, and yes, having more of these can enable us to fearlessly take up more operations like the Operation Sindoor. Now, this is therefore an agenda to boost India's ability to emerge at the top of the world when it comes to the ability to target enemies from a safe distance without the need for being geographically closer to them. And it also enables us to escape from the reach of our enemy's air defense systems. These are the two agendas here. Now, during the Operation Sindoor, the Indian Air Force had already used many long-range weapons like the BrahMos. Which is the first country? A very interesting question I'm asking you, because this I have covered in the editorial article. So I do expect that my students who are regularly following the news should know the answer. Which country is the first importer of India's BrahMos missile, which was created with the help of Russian technology? Let's see how many of us know the answer. Okay, that's a great point, Mamta. Yes. Okay, so let's see if you know the answer. So the army did use BrahMos, army used the Scalp, army used the Rampage and Crystal Maze missiles in Operation Sindoor. They were excellent when it came to targeting enemy infrastructure from a gap of 200 kilometers. Imagine the power of these weapons. So these also enabled the armies to be able to neutralize the enemy air bases that were located as far as 250 to 450 kilometers away, which means they could bypass the Chinese HQ-9 air defense system and yet operate with such efficiency. So they were even more efficient than Chinese famous HQ-9 air defense systems. So the Indian Air Force has therefore requested the domestic producer, the DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization, to further improve or to further expedite the process of development of long-range variants of Astra missile. Now, this Astra missile is India's indigenous air-to-air missile system. Very important point to remember. In prelims, you can get such one-liner questions about Astra. So do remember, yes, Astra is India's own indigenous air-to-air missile system. Okay. So the IAF also is now working towards a very important project called Project Kush. What is Project Kush or Project Kusha? This is again India's own initiative led by the Defense Research Development Organization. Another important name for the same project is the ERADS, the ERADS, Extended Range Air Defense System. Quite important. The purpose is to create long-range surface-to-air missiles. This will therefore use two different approaches with multiple intercepting missiles that will give our defense personnel the ability to attack systems as far as 150, 250 and 350 kilometers away. So do remember both these names. The Astra missile system as well as the Project Kush, named as the ERADS. Very important for next year prelims. Also important when in the mains you get a question based on Operation Sindoor or how is the Indian defense, how is the Indian Air Force or how is the Indian Army trying to ramp up or improve its own indigenous defense capacities. In that you will have to use all these points. So whether it's Astra, whether it's ERADS or as you call it Project Kush, if you mention these, then that's really good. So having said that, the article then ends with a very positive note that if these capabilities are developed in a short time, it would mean much better power to Indian defense systems and infrastructure. Now, the 2018 question I am giving you here says, which is the terminal high altitude area defense? The third. Sometimes in the news. What is this? Is it A, an Israeli radar system? Is it B, India's own indigenous anti-missile program? Is it C, an American anti-missile system? Or is it D, a defense collaboration between Japan and South Korea? So try to answer and post in the comment box. Now the next two newses are very short ones. Yes, Mamta. Definitely. The link shall be uploaded to you and you can have access to all the PDFs. That will help you in compiling your notes. I agree and yes, let's arrange it today itself. Okay, very well answered, Mamta. Great. Okay, yes, Rishi, absolutely. That's correct. Correct, Rishi, correct, Mamta. So the second last article, very short article for you. It's page number 14 and there is a important group that is, it's an international group. Just let's remember the name. You never know what comes in the exam. It's an international group and this is known as the Elders Group. But why is it important is because this group actually had been created in 2007 by Nelson Mandela. That's the importance of the group. And it is a forum that is led by the world leaders. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the kind comment, Nikhil. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you understood the topic. So, it is a group of global leaders founded back in 2007 by Nelson Mandela. The purpose is to create world peace. The purpose is to create humanitarian equality. The purpose is to create sustainable developments to ensure human rights across all developing and developed countries. For the first time, this group has come out in open and criticized the Israeli genocide in Gaza. It says that Israel is deliberately doing a humanitarian misery, a humanitarian crisis, humanitarian suffering. And this is leading to famine, people dying with diseases, an absolute ethnic cleansing of a given population in future. This may become an unprecedented act of human created, human sponsored violence. So, it says that because women and children are the worst victims of malnourishment here, it is time that the world countries come together and start providing more food, more medical supplies across the Egypt-Gaza border, the Rafah crossing. After having a visit over this crossing and their observations, the members of this group have strongly urged the world community to help through aid, to urge Israel for the ceasefire, and to do anything but to support these victims and to stop this genocide immediately. Thank you so much, Rishi. That's very kind of you. Okay, now the last article without taking much of your time, but even after this article, I will have to speak to you for another 2 minutes. So bear with me. Just look at the last article. This is the GS paper 3 Indian economy, because we are talking about inflation, more specifically retail inflation. So this is quite important. Yes, for the prelims especially. And this is GS paper 3. Okay, absolutely correct answer. That's the valid answer given to you by Sports 4. Okay. So the article says retail inflation is hitting a low of 8 years. For the first time in 8 years, retail inflation has dropped down to 1.55%. Because the food prices are going down. Imagine this news coming up at a time when, because of the trade war with the US, as India is still grappling with the chilling reality of US imposing a 50% tariff on us, as the exporters are shivering with fear, naturally so, as the global supply chains of imports from the US, exports to the US are all under threat right now, as India is trying to diversify its markets and talking to countries of ASEAN, RCEP, and looking forward to a meeting with China soon. Suddenly, this news comes that retail inflation is dropping. Therefore, it has made headlines. So, talking about this article very briefly, in India recently, as measured by the Consumer Price Index. So, there is a huge difference between Consumer Price Index, Wholesale Price Index. They are not the same things. While the second one measures the fluctuations in the prices of wholesale, the producers end. It covers the inflation from the producers side, the producers and manufacturers of goods and commodities. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, is responsible for retail inflation. It is a tool that measures inflation across the rate in the prices of goods and services which are purchased by the consumers over a period of time, over a period of a quarter of a financial year, for example. So this therefore is a key indicator. This CPI measured retail inflation is a clear-cut indicator of the cost of living in a particular country. Sometimes you may have heard that people say the cost of living in Tokyo is very high, or in Singapore is very high. In India, it's suppose Mumbai, it's very high. It means that the retail inflation here is quite high. The prices of goods and commodities is therefore very high, and the consumers have to spend a lot. When this inflation is dropping down, it means not only is the cost of living becoming cheaper, the purchasing power of the consumers is increasing. Because when the prices will fall, yes, as you and I as consumers can buy many more goods and services. So an increase in purchase power, a decrease in the total cost of living. So that's an observation. We will wait and see how this story develops in times to come, and then once again take it for consideration. Now, in the meantime, if anybody here feels you need a more detailed video on say the difference between the wholesale price index, consumer price index, all these technical terms, then do let me know in the comment box and I can bring a current affairs video for you. Okay, now let me give the last question for today. UPSC 2015, which with reference to inflation in India, which of these statements is correct? A. Controlling the inflation in India is the responsibility of the government of India only. B. The Reserve Bank of India has no role in controlling the inflation. C. Decreased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. D. Increased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. Very recently, just last month, there was so many news in the newspaper which spoke about how the Reserve Bank of India has been cutting the repo rate and the cash reserve ratio. Both these are related to this topic of purchasing power. As I said, if you need clarity, let me know. We will have a separate session on that. But as of now, try to answer this question and please post your answer in the comment box. Now, before I can take your leave for today, there are two things I want to say. One, in today's newspaper, there was a short article that was talking about what is valid citizenship in India. Because yesterday, the government of India has told some Bangladeshi residents that having a voter's ID card and having an Aadhaar card, these two documents do not prove that you are an Indian citizen. Because Indian citizenship is regulated by the Citizenship Act 1955. Okay, so therefore, just having these two documents do not prove that you are an Indian. So exactly what then is citizenship under the Part 2 of the Indian Constitution? How the Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 actually interpret citizenship. And who is the citizen then? Through birth, through registration, through naturalization, through descent. What are these categories? That's something we can take up for discussion later. The second interesting, very small article in the newspaper, but I want you to know, was that under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the new reinterpretation of the Indian Penal Code from 2023 onwards, there is a particular section called Section 152. This is under question by the government. Government is saying this is taking away the fundamental right to speech and expression, Article 19(1)(a). Is that valid? Is it true that right to free speech and expression is under threat because of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita Section 152, which says anybody who is charged for a speech, writing or expression that is in the act of sedition is against the right to free speech and expression. Is that true? That is something I am bringing for today's current affairs video only for you. That will be covered there. And now the last thing, employment linked incentive scheme. What is this scheme? Why was it shortly covered in the newspaper today? We will talk about this separately. That is all for today's Hindu newspaper. Thank you so much for being a part of this interactive, lovely session. And do like, share and subscribe the video if you found it helpful. I shall see you soon with another such exciting news session. Yes, Mamta, that answer is valid. Okay, Rishi, let me confirm the answer in the next session. In the meantime, you please think about it. Okay, option A needs to be explained. Yes, definitely I can do that for you. Option A simply means that controlling inflation in India is the responsibility of only the government of India. There is no other bank, nothing else is involved here. Whereas option number D means if people have more purchasing power, then they will buy more. Which means what happens? The cost will only keep increasing. So don't you think here C is having a major importance? When people will have no money, how will they buy goods? Will it not lead to a control in inflation? So will the answer be C or D? Think about it. I will address this interesting debate in the next session for now. And now let me quickly take a leave from this session. As I said, thank you so much to all of you. All the best. See you soon with another session. And please do keep liking, subscribing and tuning in for the latest updates. Yes, absolutely valid statement, Mamta. So thank you so much everyone here, all of you for your lovely comments and participation. I'll see you very soon. And yes, I will work on the PDF. And yes, I will address all these queries in the upcoming session. Thank you so much.